Hey everybody, this is Joan from MTG Nexus with another donation league from Space Marine. As most of you may be aware, this channel is primarily aggro based, especially in Pioneer and Modern. Primarily this channel in the past is focused on burn decks, especially in the Modern format, and obviously with the introduction of Pioneer, we've been getting into playing some Pioneer content. Those of you also a little bit more familiar with the channel know that Space Marine's kind of our resident control player. He likes to play control brews, blue-white control obviously being his favorite, and this is his, I believe, second attempt of foray into the Pioneer format. This list is an interesting amalgamation of some blue-white lists I've seen, but it's taking a little bit of a different approach. His list is primarily based around the concept of surviving to cast Approach of the Second Sun twice, and the alternative wins are things like Teferi, Hero, Dominaria, Tuck. So you have a couple different win cons in the main deck. Beyond that, one thing you'll be interesting to note is nothing like Detention Sphere or Cast Down or anything like that. So instead we're using things like Planar Cleansing and Hour of Revelation to blow up the world pretty much. The concept with this deck is using things like Supreme Verdict, Settle the Wreckage, and the Planar Cleansing Hour of Revelation to keep your opponent's board clear. Start accruing card advantage with things like Teferi, Hieroglyphic Illumination, Glimmer of Genius, and eventually get to the point where you're either revving a bunch or casting Commit to Memory into the story. Just playing a bunch of card draw. Basically old school blue-white control with only really one true just win con in the deck, and Approach on obviously has the ironic ability to also gain you 7 life whenever it's cast the first time. And then beyond that, you got a smattering of early interaction. You got things like Essence Scatter, Dovin's Veto, Syncopate, and Blessed Alliance. Keep you alive in the early turns along with Absorb. Keep problematic cards off the field as best you can until you can hit one of your sweepers and kind of reset the game from there. And then ideally you want to go like Interact on 2, Interact on 3, Verdict, or Settle the Wreckage into Teferi. Maybe draw a couple cards, let your opponent get some more stuff on the board, hit a Planar Cleansing, and then maybe like a rev for 4 or 5, kind of reset from there, kind of win. That's how this deck is aiming to win. Whether there's enough early interaction in this particular build remains to be seen. The sideboard is a bunch of threats and a few answers. Next Fleece Ram helps shore up the early aggressive decks. Things like the mono green aggro deck, etc., can get a benefit from a little bit of life gain. Lyra Dawnbringer is a pretty decent threat against the mid-range and aggro decks. Elsa, Sun's Champion is just the flat-out mid-range killer. 2 copies of Hero, Teferi, Time Raveler when you're dealing with decks that this can shut down any part of their combo. A little bit of interaction, also good against other control decks. Dovin's Veto is pretty decent in anything where you will need to counter spells without them being fought back over. Sinks of the Final Word is an interesting one. This is primarily for control mirrors. This is a card that, against things like Sultai control and such, that if you land this, they're in a lot of trouble. They're not really able to interact with any things anymore outside of discard spells. I do feel this build might have too many threats in the sideboard, but I suppose when your main deck's all answers, it's pretty reasonable. And then Ashiok is an interesting thing. You can bring this in a couple different situations when your opponent's doing any type of searching, so any type of like Scapeshift decks, which there are a few running around, things like Temur Marvel, and I don't know, it doesn't actually stop Temur Marvel other than the Attune with Ether, but this can hit control deck mirrors where you're trying to mill your opponent out. Also is incidental graveyard heat, so interesting card all the way around. Remains to be seen if this is a style of card you want to see in this archetype in the format. Special thanks to Space Marine for donating to see his deck played. Once again, I still need to revamp donation deck lists and such. Right now, currently the main way to do it is for every $10 you donate on Patreon, but there's going to be some revamping with that as well. But with that, let's get into the matches. Back for match number 1 here on the play. This hand is a little light on lands. I don't know if we can keep a 2-lander without any type of card draw on our opener, so I think this is a mulligan. Hand's not great, but I still think it's a keep. I don't need to give our opponent away any information here. Something tells me I just want to counter this. Looks like we're up against some style of Kethis combo deck. 04 is not going to really do a whole lot. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Sure. Still have no idea what's going on here. Form an Eldritch Evolution in this format. Okay. Interesting. Do have the mana advantage, so hopefully that'll help us out here. I think we just set up for settle the wreckage here. Do you play a counterspell? Doesn't really feel like your deck has room for many counterspells in it, so at least not in the main deck. He's just be activating Tassiger. Definitely don't want them having Agent of Treachery with all those lands. Just scoops it up. Alright. So, some type of Eldritch Evolution. Interesting mix of cards. Uniform. Certainly seems like an interesting deck. So, cards we're probably interested in. We're probably interested in the copies of Ashiok. Opponent could potentially be bringing in counter spells, but I'm not sure how much I care. Definitely want the Dovin's Vetoes. Don't really feel like Blessed Alliance is doing a ton in this style of matchup because they have a lot of cannon fodder. Could bring in the Tefs. Feels like Tefs could be reasonable. Go down, maybe into the story. Try it like this. Our deck is slow and clunky. Their deck is interesting. Don't think this hand's good enough. Alright. Keep. Put approach. Rev on the bottom, I guess. Kind of hope for the best here. Sure. Our Rev isn't the greatest card in this situation, obviously. Yeah, Seder Wayfinder. Not particularly relevant here. So they take what? The Sanctum? I mean, if we rip another blue Sorcerer, we could be in decent shape. Okay. Oh, decks sometimes. Pass turn. So, some type of Eldritch Evolution nonsense come in this turn? Sure. So it looks like they're just a delve into like Neoform combo nonsense. Seems reasonable. Alright. Sure. Allows us to hold up Dovin's veto this turn. Let's see what they take. Hopefully it's just Teferi. Cool. Which means I gotta take our Revelation here. Shiok is, like, ironically, or unironically, fantastic against their deck. Not going to concede quite yet. I do want to see what they'll be bringing to the party. That's a lot of beef. Ironically, still planar cleansing gets us out of this. Should be scrying with Castle Vantress there. Alright, so now that we know what our opponent is up to, Teferi Time Raveler isn't all that great. I mean, it's fine. We have a bunch of big, dumb idiots. Alright, so we want those. Absorbs seem pretty decent against what they're doing. Don't know that we really want anything else. Bunch of counter spells seems fun against their pile of misfit toys. Figure we're gonna get thought seized here on one again. Yep. Sure. Land on time. How about if I hit my no button? Don't particularly care about Seder Wayfinder here. Sure, they can hit a land drop, and they whiff on a land drop. Is that a concession? Alright, so we got there in match number 1. Back for match number 2 on the draw here. This hand's fine. Obviously a little bit awkward on the slow side. Hopefully we're not up against Just Guy Ascendancy. But I don't think... Nope, just nick this. Sure. That's a pretty good one. What you got over there, friend? mana dorks. Pass turn. Sure. Yep. Get the clock rolling here. Don't think there's quite enough our opponent can do this turn. Clear out our opponent's dorks. Okay. Hold up the Vantress Scry here. Alright, and our opponent scoops. So devotion, huh? So Burning Twee, Emissary. Outside of the Planeswalkers, is there even anything I care about? I guess Veil's annoying. So maybe I'm supposed to bring in Tefs and Veto. Go down Blessed Alliances and one of our draw spells. Maybe into the story here. This feels like the main thing that beats us is the Planeswalkers and the early mana explosions. So I think without those, like with the board wipes, we should be decent enough. I guess our opponent does have like life crafters, bestiary, and nonsense. Seems fine. Once upon a time, sure. Yeah, carotids, whatever. Syncopate's not going to stop a lot, but it seems reasonable in this spot. Cavalier of Thorns. gonna go ahead and hit my no button on that one. Counterspell. Dork. Hopefully we hit a sweeper here. Keep absorb. We're just going to rev for 2 here. Or cast absorb, whichever is more important. Could be getting close to casting Ulamog, which would be annoying. While still having the ability to hold up absorb here. Don't care about Druid. Cariotage, sure. One, two, three, four, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So does it make sense the last card in their hand could either be, I guess it's most likely to be copy of Nykthos? Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe I should have gone after Garen Brigg. Yep. Sure. And so even if they have Ulamog at this point, I'm not sure I care. Let's go 1 for 1, keep our dude alive. So walking ballista. Questing beast can be countered, right? Yeah. Currently 13 cards in hand. Nice problem to have, I guess. We're to sell breakage here. Pass turn. I guess they could potentially have Veil of Summer stuck in their hand, huh? Don't even remotely care about that one. Just play on my part there. Had an opportunity to... Alright, we do have an approach somewhere in our deck still, right? Didn't board that out. Hmm. Approach gotta be in this deck somewhere. I mean, oh right, did I bottom approach at the beginning of this game? And opponent scoops up. Alright. 2-0 start so far. Quite nice with Mr. Space Marine's list. So, anyways, on to match number 3. We're back for match number 3. I think this hand is okay, but not great. I think on the play it's a little bit more defensible. Planar Cleansing obviously a little bit slow to the party. It's at least giving the illusion that there's something going on here. Even though it's most likely we're up against Phoenix. Yep. Alright. Do the thing. This is where Phoenixes are going to be kind of annoying. Okay. Birdie birdie. Birdie birdie. Yep. Card on the bottom. Good chance they can do another spell here. Means they get to bring the Phoenixes back, unfortunately. So the verdict being supreme isn't terrible. Certainly could bring the Phoenixes back this turn. Yep. Sure. It's annoying. Probably should have left up a blue source here. And I presume you have another spell here to really make it annoying. Yep. 3 Arclight Phoenixes. Yay. Alright. Well. See. Well, burn spells might be enough here to kill us, so. Another copy of Izzet Charm would be obnoxious. And on to the next game. Alright, so Phoenixes, huh? Probably want Tefels. Probably want Ashiok. Lyra could be alright. Sphinx could be alright. Veto could be okay, especially if they're trying to fight back. Zorb isn't great in this style of matchup. Essence Scatter feels like it might be a little bit narrow. Rev can be a little bit clunky. Try it like this. This is where not having something like, what is the name of that goofy card? Sands. Not great, but I think we keep it. Could have left up the option to cycle this turn, but I don't think it's going to be terribly relevant. Sure. Pass turn. This is one of my considerations as to Could have an Izzet Charm here. Nope, just opt. Sylvantress gives us a nice little bit of Brazen Borrower, huh? Sure. Hit it with a mystical dispute or something, or nothing. Okay. No Narset for you. I'm literally not going to fight over this. If they wish to Izzet Charm it, then they can Izzet Charm it. Sure. So I guess Essence Scatter takes on a little bit more utility in the face of things like Brazen Borrower. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hit my no button on that. Sure. What you got, friend? What you got there, friend? Sure. Sure. Hopefully you don't have Spell Pierce, but of course you probably do. Yep. So we're taking 5 this turn. Okay. Okay. Yep. So dig through time and treasure cruise in the same deck? Seems like you should be doing one or the other, not both. Yep. Goodbye, friend. Sure. Suppose you could gas tackle. So am I dead here? Feels like I'm dead here. Okay. And got one more wild slash in you? Sure do. Well, that was fun. Unfortunately, only 2 cards away here, but sometimes that's the way it goes. Anyways, on match number 4. Yeah, we're back for match number 4. Unfortunately, we're on the draw. Obviously, can't keep this hand with the 1 land Field of Ruin hand. This hand's fine. Put back the Rev for now. Oh, great. Another Once Upon a Time deck. so stupid. Yep. Can land in Once Upon a Time. At least that'll prevent us from getting hit by some type of planeswalker this turn, but if they just have a large creature, it's going to be kind of whatever. So annoying. Really need a Supreme Verdict next turn. Verdict or some style of yeah, nope. Once again, Supreme Verdict would be great. And 1 billion sweepers in our deck, can't draw one of them. Cool. So, the sad part is most of our good stuff is already out. So, could potentially bring in vetoes over maybe a Rev, and like Elspeth could be good, but like there's so many things that allow them to punch through that, including Walking Ballista. It kind of shows how many, and I guess Blessed Alliance is kind of eh. So, what other card would I be interested in over Blessed Alliance? Maybe one of those. Hand seems reasonable. Once again, really could use one of our sweepers. Yep. Be right back, doorbell. Once again, looking for a verdict or subtle wreckage. Be back as soon as they're back. And they're back. Jade Light on top of everything else. Oop. Too many things we gotta answer. Not even once upon a time. Wow. Not sure if our opponent's just distracted or if they're trying to time Once Upon a Time to get a land drop. Not really sure. Rev's not great, but at least it's something, I guess. Questing Beast. Kinda awkward. Here, let me hand you a bunch of mana. Alright. It's got a bunch of cards stuck in their hand. I don't really care if they go for Once Upon a Time here. Jade Light's gonna resolve. Down in the graveyard, get a land. Jam the Nissa, yes you want to, fa la 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 la. spells galore, la 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 la. Good lord. Sure. Supreme Verdict. I think you'd just get an Ulamog at this point, wouldn't you? Yeah. Come on, deck, give me something here. Five, 5, 10, 12 lands in our top 22. Seems good. Alright, quick 2-0 start. Unfortunately, down to a 2-2 record right now. On to match number 5. Back for the 5th and final match in this league. Nation deck list from Space Marine. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. Once again, Mulligan. This hand's obviously better. The question is, what do we get rid of here? So feels this might be green blue Stompy. Pass turn. what you got here. Mistake on my part. Now I could get hit by something annoying. That would definitely qualify as something annoying. Get hit by a stub here, and okay, well. Got a 3-3 and then we're dead, so let's make them make the right play. But we're just dead, so my punt with the Yoko certainly cost us. So be mindful of your tap and untap lands. Nyx Fleece Rams, not all that great against their 5/5s. Simic Stompy. Bunch of Life Clafters, Bestiaries in the thing. Guess we could theoretically bring in Invokers. Yeah, I guess this hand's alright. Yep. Pass turn. Let's go ahead and scatter their essence. Just need to keep hitting land drops, I guess. Yeah, that's a thing. Thought-Knots here, huh? Okay. Sometimes I swear this deck and its land base hate me. Sure. Loot first. Come on, deck. Untap land. Yep. Yield 4 for 1. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Come to chat with you again. Although it's always shouting out warnings. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. Another haste threat, we're just dead. Okay, yeah, Oko's annoying. Alright, we're getting close. Alright, so... Now we just gotta survive this crap on the play. So they showed us a bunch of Eldrizzles and some... Does that change how we want to approach this? think it changes how we want to approach this game. I think this hand's decent enough. Yeah, I get it. You have Once Upon a Time. Okay. This is where being on the draw is extremely obnoxious. Yep. Oko, extremely annoying. All these counter spells aren't really going to do us a whole heck of a lot of good here. Alright, so you're more interested in the beatdown plan. Hopefully you don't have another land. Just another Dorko, sure. I mean, we have Absorbed up, but they probably have Stubborn Denial. Sure. Yep. So really need a copy of one of our bigger sweepers? Sure. Settle the wreckage. Yep. Hmm. Okay. Yep. And we're dead. Alright, well, it's kind of a disappointing end of the league. Definitely a little bit of a punt there in the first game against Oko. Could have bought us enough time, but I'll be back here in a minute with the wrap up. So back with the wrap up here for Space Marines list. I think the big takeaway is too much clunk. I think the idea of a lot of sweepers and some counter spells and some interactions fine. I just think that there's too much reliance on hitting a 4-mana sweeper. I think Planar Cleansing and Hour Revelation are probably fine in some number, but there's just entirely too many spells in this deck that are way above the curve. Even with Syncopates over here, you have 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You have like 20 or 30 some spells that are forecasting cost and above. I honestly think you need more stuff that plays to the board early on, so whether that be things like Cast Down, things like Brief Fairy, maybe some Seal Aways. I really think there needs to be more things that play to the board or slow down what the enemy's deck is doing a little bit more. I think the other issue is something I discussed in the opening part of the thing, is I think there isn't enough early interaction for aggressive decks, especially in the form of decks that are able to put big power stuff on play. So things like Devotion, things like Green Aggro. Nyx Fleece Ram, while is solid against certain archetypes like Burn or Red Aggro, I don't think it really solves the aggression problems of things like Phoenix or Green Blue Stompy. So I think there's a lot of decks in the format that can take advantage of this particular setup. I think something like I'm not even sure, like Last Breath or Declaration in Stone. I think some number of those cards are necessary just to stem the early turns enough to survive to get to the powerful late game. I do like the idea of a powerful late game that revolves around Planar Cleansing, Hour of Revelation, that kind of stuff. I think that is a very powerful thing. I think not relying on things like Detention Sphere and potentially Seal Away are good, but I do think there needs to be a balance between all of these draw spells and a little bit more early interaction. So, like some number of Declaration Stone, Last Breath, those kind of cards probably need to make their way into the main deck, even if they don't necessarily play as well with the counter spells. Being able to double spell on turn 4, like hold up, say, Essence Scatter and, Last Breath away something, or Declaration in Stone something away. I think it's just a little too clunky. There was definitely a dichotomy, like the combo game where they were a little bit slow to set up. The counter spells were pretty good against a lot of the Devotion decks and stuff. I think they played the board too quickly to rely completely on counter spells, especially when we're on the draw. The 1-mana dorks are just too big of a liability. Like I said, we could potentially have won, or at least had a better shot to win the 5th match if I had played the correct land to be able to absorb that Oko. But Oko is another planeswalker that, much like Gideon Alley of Zendikar, once it comes down, kind of forms its own army in a can. So, there are certain cards that the style of deck struggles with, especially when they can back it up with like things like discard spells or counter spells. So I think there's definitely some room for shaving some numbers. I think another consideration is you could play something like Fae of Wishes. I think Jeff Hoogland has had some success with Fae of Wishes to avoid some of the clunk. Nice thing about Fae is you can always bounce it back to your hand, either with a discard ability or say if you're playing Free Fairy in the main deck. So I think I would honestly take a look at some of the approach decks that Jeff Hoogland's been running with. Maybe find a mid-range balance between those two decks. Because I do like the Planar Cleansing Hour Revelation plan, but I think in the end there's just too much clunk in this deck, even in a format like Pioneer. So, anyways, nice job, Space Marine, but probably need to clean up the list a little bit, man. So, hope this leak helps, and this has been John for MTG Nexus. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.